It's been a couple of months since I last did a new 151 video, but I know you guys like these, so today we're going to go over 5 more redesigns. We're going to look at Jigglypuff, Zubat, Oddish, Paris, and Venonat. But in case you're new here and you haven't heard of the new 151 before, it's a project that I've been doing over on Tumblr with my friend Infinipede. We're going through all 151 Kanto Pokemon and giving them a facelift. The Sugimori-ish art is all mine, but the designs are a team effort. Infinipede and I take the lead on different Pokemon, but we work together to refine the ideas, and we also have a small group of friends who give us feedback and occasionally do designs of their own. The Tumblr link is in the description, or you can click the link in the iCard or at the end of the video to check out the other videos I've done about it. Let's get started. Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff have 2 core concepts: balloons and sound. If Pokemon were to introduce a sound type, Jigglypuff would be the first one to get retconned with it. Because it's very voice-based, we gave it ears and a mouth that are even bigger than in the original, and we emphasized its balloonness with a tail that resembles a balloon knot. The stubby feet were inspired by Skitty, and they're meant to imply that it doesn't really walk, it just floats. So I like to picture myself walking around with a floating Jigglypuff tied to my wrist. Wigglytuff expands on that by being more like a parade float. And we also wanted to give it more noticeable fur. Jigglypuff's fur surprised a lot of people in Detective Pikachu, but Wigglytuff's luscious fur is actually very prominent in the Dex entries. So we gave it visible tufts of fur, and we turned its hair into a pompadour inspired by Elvis Presley. Zubat is more like a Halloween cutout of a bat than an actual bat. Its wings have a really weird shape that does not look functional. It doesn't even have eyes or feet. How does Zubat perch anyway? Golbat isn't any better. It's got weird stick figure feet and a mouth so big that its body doesn't have space for anything else. We had our work cut out for us. But I think we managed to fix all of those problems without really sacrificing the essence of those designs. Pulling on Halloween, we decided to take them in a more vampire direction, so the end-to-end wings are meant to look like capes, and the chest patterns look like tuxedos, with the buttons being blood drops. Zubat still has no eyes or feet, but at least it has fingers to hold on to something with. Golbat gets real feet, and it does grow eyes like the original, but they are glazed over, so it's still mostly blind, but it keeps Zubat's big ears so that it can properly echolocate. The mouth is still very prominent, but it's not quite as big, so there's space on the body for the chest pattern. And I made sure to draw it in a way to emphasize its tendency to overdrink and become clumsy. On the other hand, we have the Oddish family, which is on the upper end of designs from Gen 1, so our job was more to just spruce them up a bit. So for Oddish, we gave it the coloring of a radish, and yes, that connection is only from the English name, but we'd used English names as an inspiration before, like with Venusaur, so there was precedent there. As for the leaves, rather than letting them look like marijuana, we based them on some Japanese kinds of radish, as well as some grapevines. And that's also why there's little grapes on it. And the grape connection may seem a bit odd for Oddish, but it will make sense soon. We didn't want Gloom to just look like a miniature Vileplume, so instead we based it on the Titan Arum. These huge flowers are not very closely related to Vileplume's Rafflesia, but they are both called corpse flower. And the Titan Arum does kind of look like it's halfway through blooming into something else. Vileplume is probably the one that changed the least. The Rafflesia petals got floppier, and it has a spike in the middle just to resemble Gloom's Titan Arum. It also has a grapevine tail, which I can now explain, because Rafflesia is a parasite flower, and its hosts are lianas in the grape family. So not grapes themselves, but grape-like vines with grape-like fruits. So in a way, it's like Vileplume's tail is the source of its energy. Paris and Parasect, as we all know, are the poor victims of a mind-controlling parasite fungus. The Pokédex identifies it as Tochukaso, which is actually a real fungus. It's known in English as caterpillar fungus. It's very similar to the cordyceps fungi that we see in The Last of Us, for example. But the thing is that caterpillar fungus and cordyceps don't really look like this. They don't have this toadstool mushroom look. So we replaced them with something that is a little bit closer to what they look like IRL. We also wanted to make the insect host body more like the cicada nymphs that the original seems to be vaguely based on. OG Paris has these little bumps on the forehead, which we replaced with the ocelli or simple eyes that cicadas have. And with Parasect, we made the cicada body shape even more obvious. Parasect wouldn't look right without a giant shroom on its back, but the mushroom cap of the original wouldn't fit well with the Tochukaso. So instead we based Parasect's main mushroom on puffball fungi, mainly one called Calostoma cinnabarinum, to fill out the space between the cordyceps stalks. Remember when we did Butterfree? We were addressing the theory that Butterfree and Venomoth designs got swapped at some point in development, and we had to change Butterfree almost entirely to make it fit in with Caterpie and Metapod. It's almost unrecognizable. But we found that Venonat and Venomoth didn't actually need that much. We picked a moth species to base these two on, and we went with the pale tiger moth because it does kind of look like a Venomoth, but also because the caterpillar has these huge tufts of fur, and that felt like a good way to make Venonat's fairly simple design a bit more interesting. I also drew Venonat in a pose to make it look more like a very short caterpillar. Venomoth got a fluffy torso, tiny hands, and red compound eyes from Venonat, and we also gave it patterns on the backs of the wing, which is reminiscent of the pale tiger moth, but it's also a nod to Venomoth's earliest official art. And even though I think this version is much more harmonious with Venonat, it still looks very recognizably like Venomoth, and I think that's the best we could have hoped for. This wasn't really meant to be a Halloween episode, but between vampire bats, corpse flowers, and zombie mushrooms, I think it's a Halloween episode. Make sure you let us know what you thought of these redesigns by leaving a comment down below. You can also follow Infinipede on Twitter, the link is in the description, and make sure to check out the new 151 on Tumblr. We've gone up to Farfetch there. I'm hoping that Doduo and Dodrio will be ready by the time this video is up, but if not, they will be ready very soon. And you can let me know if you enjoyed this video by leaving a like, and if you're new here and you want to see more redesigns, make sure to subscribe. I'm Umbreon Libris. I'll see you in the next chapter. So instead, we based Parasect's main mushroom on puffball fungus. Puffball fungi! Because they're fun guys. Of course I made that joke.